his or her own ego, a sea of dreams in constant flux. But in Adam, their genes remain.
And let young Eleanor see the sun.
Ready to be tested against a moral vessel. Utopia cannot precede the utopian. It will exist the moment we are fit to occupy it.
To serve the world, we must go deaf to the self. This quote by the despotic psychologist Sofia Lamb suggests that in order to contribute to society, one must ignore one's own desires. In her case, this doesn't just mean looking out for others, but genuinely killing the selfish, competitive part of ourselves, the I, to make room for the we, so that all of our desires are the desires of the collective will. When this happens, tyranny will die. Lamb was speaking essentially in opposition to Andrew Ryan, who argued that self-interest was the core way to serve the world. In other words, she used collectivism to fight objectivism. Although Lamb, like Ryan, is a hypocrite, some of her words ring true for a couple of the greatest thinkers in history, namely John Stuart Mill and Jesus Christ. Bioshock 2 is a first-person shooter / immersive sim video game released in 2010 and the sequel to the hit 2007 video game Bioshock. Despite receiving positive reviews, it's often considered the weakest of the Bioshock trilogy, with most agreeing that it tread much of the same ground as the first installment in the series while failing to add enough of its own spin. However, its reputation has improved over time and now it's plenty of people's favourites, praised for its intimate story and expansion of the Bioshock lore. Ken Levine, the creator of Bioshock, said that it fulfilled the mission of completing the story of Rapture. A lot of things about this game interest me. Sure, it has a similar structure to Bioshock 1, but its narrative is also a complete foil. Sofia Lamb is the foil to Andrew Ryan, Augustus Sinclair is the foil to Frank Fontaine, and Subject Delta is the foil to Jack. There are connections here which I don't think anyone else has ever made.
I could end the self and save the world.
Because Rapture is not just a city, it is a playground for ideologies. It is a sea of dreams in constant flux, and for some, it's the only home they've ever known. The game begins with this title card, indicating that this opening cutscene takes place 2 years before the events of Bioshock 1. Now, if you don't know anything about the first game, I would recommend going back and watching at least some of my Bioshock video to catch up with context. Otherwise, I'm about to give the fastest crash course ever on the basic lore. So Rapture was built by Andrew Ryan, a prosperous industrialist, as a place for the richest and smartest minds in the world to escape the parasites of modern society under the sea. Government, the church, and socialism were his main gripes, but anyone who accepted handouts such as welfare was a parasite.
What is the difference between a man and a parasite? A man builds, a parasite asks, "Where's my share?"
In his objectivist view, life was about self-interest and survival, with everyone getting exactly what they deserve without intervention. This, as you can probably guess, went badly. When Adam, a gene-splicing drug found in sea slugs on the ocean floor, was introduced to Rapture and led to the creation of plasmids, Adam-based serums which could grant their users different abilities, the city began to fall apart. A civil war broke out between Ryan and freedom fighter Atlas, who defended the interests of the poor and who also turned out to be thought-dead crooked businessman Frank Fontaine. Atlas/Fontaine won the war using his ace in the hole, a boy scientifically aged into a full-grown man and placed under the influence of Fontaine's mind control. Oh yeah, and he's also Ryan's son, and the character you play as in Bioshock 1. In the end, Jack defeats both Ryan and Fontaine and flees to the surface, leaving Rapture in disrepair and without its primary leaders of the last 2 decades. The thing is, apart from the basic facts of Ryan's worldview and Fontaine's mind control program and the state of Rapture at the end of the game, none of that stuff really matters that much for Bioshock 2. What does matter are these guys. Immediately after the title card, we are shown a cutscene of our character, known as Subject Delta, looking after a little sister called Helena. The Little Sisters are mind-controlled orphans used to store and cultivate Adam, a program created by Bridget Tenenbaum and funded by Frank Fontaine. Since their inception, they've been scouring Rapture looking for dead bodies they can drain of Adam, protected from rogue splicers by these guys. Big Daddies. In Bioshock 2, that is what you are. Though not the kind we're used to, you play as an Alpha Series Big Daddy, which we'll get into later. You traipse through the halls with Helena, who gleefully descends upon mutilated corpses who she sees in her mind as angels to drain their Adam. However, you are both attacked by a gang of splicers, and after taking out 3 of them, you are hit with a hypnotized plasmid. A woman then walks up to you, Sofia Lamb. She claims Helena is her daughter, and then...
Now, kneel, please. Remove your helmet. Now, take the pistol. Place it against your head. Fire.
10 years later, Subject Delta wakes up. Sofia Lamb is one of the most interesting antagonists I've ever seen in a video game, especially in contrast to Ryan in 1. Rightfully, the developers went down a route which they thought would most challenge the audience. Oh, so you thought Ryan's ideology was bad? Let's show you the exact opposite and see what you think of that. Lamb's motivations stem from her experiences during World War II, where she worked as a missionary in Hiroshima, Japan. She wanted to help as many people as possible, all for the greater good. And upon seeing the leaders in America justifying the atomic bomb along the exact same lines of logic, she was horrified. This is one of the more justifiable reasons I can see for someone becoming very committed to a specific ideology. Lamb believes in utilitarianism, a concept encapsulated by this quote from the father of utilitarianism, Jeremy Bentham. Create all the happiness that you are able to create and remove all the misery you are able to remove. And as Lamb says, each act must be measured not merely within the moment, but against all causality. Essentially, morality is all about creating happiness and reducing suffering for the collective. It's consequentialist, so sacrificing something of your own for the greater good is morally correct. Bentham and his arguably more famous successor John Stuart Mill stressed the importance of not throwing around this system haphazardly and inadvertently taking away someone's agency or making sacrifices which actually can't be justified for the greater good. The only purpose for which power can be rightfully exercised over any member of a civilized community against his will is to prevent harm to others. And society between equals can only exist on the understanding that the interests of all are to be regarded equally. This is what Lamb had an issue with. The people who dropped the bomb on Hiroshima justified the sacrifice of thousands and thousands of lives in the name of peace. The thing is, that Mill quote I just read out is caveated by the clause, except in relation of master and slave. And yes, utilitarianism can be used to justify slavery and other despicable actions because maybe they're all in the name of the greater good. I don't think Lamb necessarily disagrees with this usage. Throughout Bioshock 2, Lamb's trouble isn't with the fact that she might have to take away people's agencies in order to fulfill her utopian plan, but just that people aren't really going along with it. She's infuriated actually that her followers, while loyal, still care about themselves, and she will do anything to remove this feeling, this ego, from the body.
But intelligence does not require introspection. The son of Ryan was more effective than all his self-aware rivals. He lived without questions.
It doesn't sound utilitarian or collective on the surface, but in her mind, the ends certainly justify the means. And before we denounce her as a hypocrite, let's just keep our minds open for the moment. What is her utopian dream, and how does she aim to achieve it? Those who know the game may be answering, Helena, duh. But it's not that simple. And there's one man who certainly complicates things. Are her intentions genuinely good? And thematically, how does Subject Delta line up?
I know you. 10 subject, Delta, since I watched you put a gun to your head and pull the trigger. But take heart. Out of your pain, paradise was born. I don't know how you survived, but your suffering is over now. Please understand that like all I have done, this is an act of love.
Now, when you wake up 10 years later, it is not because you survived that gunshot wound to the face, but because you were revived in one of these Vita chambers. Helena Lamb, the little sister you were looking after, brought you back. She has been under the care of her mother, Sophia, since then, but is clearly discontented. The reason that she could and would bring you back is twofold. One, having been turned into a little sister previously, she still retains some degree of control over them and can get them to gather your genetic code. And two, as an alpha series, you are no ordinary Big Daddy. You were a deep sea diver who discovered Rapture completely by accident and were removed from the public spotlight when Ryan became suspicious you might be a spy of sorts. Gil Alexander, a scientist, turned you into a Big Daddy and bonded you to a little sister so that you would be ultimately committed to your role as protector, the first of your kind. Stray too far from her and you die. So this isn't just a random little sister that you were looking after. She calls you father, and of course you have a biologically engineered urge to find and save her.
Father is back, right under Mother's nose. We've worked out a way to free his mind inside that suit, to awaken the man inside the monster. Mother's entire belief structure is corrupt. If I know one thing about Father, it's that he will believe in escape.
Eleanor.
This makes for a nice intimate story as you journey across Rapture to rescue Eleanor from Sophia's clutches. What is actually being done with her? We'll find out later. But I just want to say, you are faced with a number of moral choices in Bioshock 2, a whole lot more complex and well developed than in the first game. We have to wonder how Delta's conditioning to care for and even love Eleanor affects these choices. What might this say about free will and Lamb's utilitarian philosophy? Does the unconsensual experimentation on Delta become worth it if he ends up saving Eleanor's life? And are the moral choices he makes really his own? Man, I'm asking a lot of questions here. To answer the million questions I've posed here in the introductory section, I want to run through 4 different chapters. Imago is coming, where we'll discuss what Rapture's remaining figures each represent and the process of building a quasi-religious cult. The Blind Architect, where we'll discuss a character whose importance is usually downplayed, I'd say. The First Utopian, where we'll discuss the relationship between Delta and Eleanor, and also free will in relation to Augustus Sinclair. And finally, in Escaping the Self, we'll chat about morality, parenthood, and what Bioshock 2 is really trying to say. The first character we meet in the game is Bridget Tenenbaum, the scientist from Bioshock 1 who is responsible for the creation of the Little Sisters and is now on a quest to rescue them. The reason she's back is that Sofia Lamb has restarted the program by kidnapping girls from the surface to transform them into Adam vessels. Add that to the list of means justifying Lamb's utopian end. Oh, and also about 2 seconds ago when she tried to have you killed in a quote-unquote act of love. Tenenbaum essentially tells you about the Little Sisters and then your mission, which is to find Eleanor before you die. But her final line before she is interrupted by an announcement from Lamb is very interesting.
She is using the new little ones for something, and I have returned to rescue them. If I do not, more children will die for my sins, and the Rapture nightmare will repeat forever.
She expresses her fear that the Rapture nightmare will continue forever. And the question arises here, it's been 8 years since we've seen the city. What has changed? Well, on the whole, not much. Rapture is in disrepair, but the army of splicers which crawl the districts are no longer under Ryan's control. They have joined Sofia Lamb's Rapture family. After Ryan's fall, Lamb filled the void left with messages of collectivism and unity, insisting that she had a vision for a better utopian world. Many citizens down here are loyal to this vision, painting the walls with her message and her butterfly symbol, which just happens to be the cover of her book Unity and Metamorphosis. Unity and Metamorphosis is is essentially her doctrine's Bible, and it is full of some juicy quotes. But creating this cult has clearly not led to the paradise that Lamb dreamed of, and her frustration is apparent in the pages of the book. It is among the grandest of human ironies that our very drive to find utopia has kept us from abiding there. So she has landed on a more drastic solution. And although she is opposed to Ryan, it's clear that she's starting to come around to his base methodology and even his thought process. Is this a glaring weakness in Bioshock 2's message, failing to effectively criticize collectivism? Spoiler alert, no. After fighting off a wave of Lamb splicers, Augustus Sinclair comes on the line, a sleazy businessman with a southern drawl who claims to be your guide on this journey. Anyone who played the first game would have been extremely suspicious of Sinclair, as he fulfills the exact same role as Atlas in Bioshock 1. He also has an openly similar outlook to Ryan and Fontaine, being mostly self-serving and suspicious of altruism. During the Civil War, for example, he exploited the situation of those in poverty to produce cheap experimental plasmids for the market. Basically, at face value, not a great guy. The thing is, he becomes your only friend in Rapture and doesn't betray you right up until the last moment.
I hear often, Mr. Sinclair, you just got a heart of stone. Don't you want to share with your fellow man? I came to Georgia to strike it rich, and Rapture all the more so. You won't catch me blowing my last bubble for any other personage.
Son, I built this place and I did rent you out to those plasmid trials. And now I'm paying for it. Wish I had time to make amends.
This kind of muddies the waters, but we'll come back to Sinclair in part 4 of this video. Our journey takes us through Atlantic Express, Ryan's Amusements, a section which catches you up to speed on Ryan's ideology, and then to Pauper's Drop. Workers who had originally built the train network in Rapture ended up settling in Pauper's Drop, which was never meant to house anyone permanently, after essentially losing their function when the network was done. It was Sofia Lamb's initial base of operations, where she gave free counselling propaganda to its poorest citizens, gaining a loyal following. Her support base grew so intense that it soon resembled a religion, perhaps even a cult. Sounds just a little bit familiar, doesn't it? Exploiting the poor for power by promising some higher purpose. Exploit the poor for power by promising purpose. Bars. The leader of Pauper's Drop by 1968 is a lady named Grace Holloway. Fun fact about Grace, she used to be a singer before she was blacklisted from the industry by Ryan for being too critical of his regime. When Ryan then killed her husband James, she stopped singing altogether, until she was inspired to start again by Sofia Lamb. Those weren't really very fun facts, were they? Then, when Lamb was imprisoned by Ryan, Grace took in Helena. Being infertile, this was joyous news for her.
Sophia remembered that I was barren, and she asked me to take care of her baby while she's gone. I have a child now, and it's gonna put the whole world all right.
However, one day Helena disappeared, and the next time that Grace saw her, she was walking around as a little sister, protected by you, Subject Delta. And this, by the way, was all before the events of Bioshock 1. Because she sees you as the reason that Helena was taken from her, and because you broke her jaw when she tried to get her back, Grace hates you. Therefore, your time in Pauper's Drop is unpleasant, to say the least. Show a compilation of fighting there, that'd be cool. It's interesting to note here that we have two victims of Ryan who both care deeply for Helena in conflict with one another. The relationship between Lamb and Grace is a great representation of stage 1 of Lamb's cult building in her journey towards Imago. We get a few snippets of their therapy sessions together, which initially indoctrinated Grace into the Rapture family, and the exploitation is clear from the jump.
Grace, I know you all too well. Want of child defines you. But biological loyalty turns us against the rest of the world, whom we ought to love in equal measure. Your poverty is testament to that. Though your body failed you, you shall live on in us.
Not only does Lamb prey on her poverty, but on her infertility. It's also mightily ironic that in her personal audio logs, Grace describes how her family grew up in a Hooverville during the Great Depression. Pauper's Drop, she says, is worse, and Lamb is supposedly one of the only ones who still views the poor there as people. Now, I really hate to be a cliche history student here, but there was a certain man after the Great Depression who said some similar things in Germany. I mean, it's the tactic that you see over and over again in history for people who want to gain power. Grace's story is an all too familiar one. Oppressed by the previous regime, she's promised a better life in the form of collectivism, allowing herself to be ignorant of the fact that history is repeating itself and Lamb's plans are more disguised fascism than open altruism. Stage 1 of building a cult following: exploit hardship and gain loyalty. There is more to be said about Grace, but this video isn't the place to cover it. For now, we'll end with the final confrontation in Pauper's Drop, where Grace gives you the option to kill her.
Come on in and finish the job.
Sinclair implores you to indulge her, but stresses that it's entirely your choice. As I made my decision, I wondered here how Subject Delta would possibly think this through. If his drive is to find Helena, would revenge be on his mind at all? Are the remnants of that human diver still there in his consciousness? Does he have a moral compass? To try and maybe answer these, let's gather some more evidence. Having made your decision to kill or not kill Grace, you continue your journey through Rapture, guided by Sinclair. The next stop is Siren Alley, where Lamb's next loyal follower awaits. Simon Wales. After killing whales and draining Dionysus Park, the next section of its flooding, you continue on your journey. Previously Lamb's own private haven for her collectivist ideals and artistry in general, Dionysus Park is now run down and littered with bodies drowned in the flood. Seemingly the sole survivor is Stanley Poole, an ex-journalist who asks you to rid the level of the Little Sisters before he allows you to proceed. Side note, this was the toughest level of the game for me. I found myself running out of first aid kits and hypos very quickly when fighting big daddies and then draining bodies of Adam. Oh yeah, I should say that we have the same choice here as we did in Bioshock 1, whether we want to harvest or rescue the Little Sisters for their Adam. However, the rescuing option, the morally better choice maybe, requires a lot more effort in Bioshock 2, i.e. protecting the little sister from rogue splicers as she drains Adam. This makes the choice a lot more difficult, and as I was running out of supplies and money in Dionysus Park, and having never ever harvested a little sister in any of my playthroughs ever, I decided I was curious what it would look like. Those who know Bioshock 2 knows that that was extremely stupid of me. Now, in the world of Bioshock 2, Adam contains memories, so as you work your way through the Little Sisters, fragments appear to you.
With me gone, Father, Stanley just let Mother's followers turn into animals, so he found a way to silence them all.
It turns out that Stanley Poole was a mole in the Rapture family. He infiltrated it on behalf of Sinclair, who hired him on behalf of Ryan and gathered evidence to lock Lamb up. He was then in control of Dionysus Park, but when Helena became suspicious of him, he was the one who sent her to a Little Sister orphanage. And then when Lamb broke out of prison, Stanley flooded the entire park, killing those in the family who had witnessed his misdeeds. Lamb is well aware of this, and she comes on the intercom to say that she forgives him. However, she also reveals that Stanley was the one who brought Ryan's attention to you, the diver named Johnny Topside who discovered Rapture accidentally.
I had known for years of Stanley's betrayal here, and had forgiven him. You see, it was Stanley who turned you into Ryan. He is responsible for what you have become.
Now, Stanley is a tricky one because he doesn't line up with the other figures we meet. He wasn't in Lamb's cult, he betrayed it. But Lamb's discovery of this fact, documented in audio logs, is very telling.
At last, we have our Judas. As a religion, they merely monitored us. But as a commune, they would see us crucified.
There's perhaps a reason why Lamb was so forgiving to Stanley. She wanted a traitor. The Reichstag fire of 1933 was an arson attack carried out on the German Parliament building about a month into Hitler's chancellorship. Supposedly it was carried out by a communist and represented a wider communist threat. It was used to justify the Reichstag fire decree and the enabling acts the following month, which gave Hitler temporary emergency powers, which he didn't give up until his death in 1945. Stage 2 of building a cult following, create a narrative. Having Stanley as her Judas justifies Lamb's position as the saviour. It's no coincidence that Jesus is sometimes referred to as the Lamb of God. This stage also lines up with Lamb's portrayal of Ryan's regime, which she expresses open disdain for. Now, I recently just finished reading Orwell's Animal Farm, so mild spoiler warning for a moment, but the book follows a group of farm animals who rise up against their farmer, Mr. Jones, and take control of the farm. It's a pretty clear analogy for the Russian Revolution of 1917, with the animals having communist principles. The thing is, control soon falls back into the hands of one class, the pigs. Their founding principles are muddied, the other animals are exploited, and through it all, one slogan remains: at least it's better than how it was under Mr. Jones. Even if it is not. At least it's better than how it was under the Tsar, even if it is not. At least it's better than how it was under Ryan, even if it is not. I didn't read Animal Farm as a real critique of communism, as their communist society never really got to form before it was hijacked by Napoleon's authoritarianism. So reading Bioshock 2 as a weak criticism of collectivism perhaps isn't the most important interpretation. But then again, it's also not just about the corruptibility of power. Now, is Lamb doing all of this consciously and strategically? The Judas audio log is perhaps the best evidence leaning towards yes, she wants that cult following, but I don't think she views it as that. It's more like she wants to push everyone towards the collective will, and if these stages of cult building can do that whilst gaining her power and influence to then push people even harder, then it's completely justifiable in her philosophy. The thing that all my waffle is building towards is, where does Lamb see this collective will going? What is the greater good? What is Imago?
Before it's tomorrow, I'll know what sunshine feels like.
After Lamb reveals Stanley was the inadvertent reason that we became a Big Daddy in the first place, you once again have the option to kill him.
The security booth is open now. You may have your revenge.
Now, there's much more cause this time to kill Stanley, who seems pretty spineless, if not downright evil, whereas Grace was genuinely a decent person. We don't know Stanley's backstory, but it doesn't seem like he was really coerced into these actions, at least compared to other people in the story. I guess it was just money? Well, that's the media for you. This makes me slightly uncomfortable, as we have much more context for everyone else's actions, and I'm left wondering, who actually is Stanley Poole? I don't blame him for bringing us to Ryan's attention, that was almost inadvertent, but selling Helena away and then killing all the witnesses? It's hard to find justification for that.
You can't just stop, a whole cult from talking, can you? Well, maybe you can. Yeah, maybe you can.
After making a decision, we make our way over to Fontaine's Futuristics, where we're confronted by another figure of Rapture, Gilbert Alexander. Gil, to me, is by far the most interesting person that we meet in Rapture. A scientist, he created the Alpha series. He created you, Subject Delta. He was also the one who bonded you and Helena, a process he deeply regretted after falling in with Lamb and the Rapture family. His audio logs reveal his great loyalty and even love for Sophia.
I can only describe her as a kind of secular saint. But dividing her loyalty evenly across the world at large spreads it so thin as to be invisible to some. Love, I have found, is beneath her.
He also understands and even respects her vision for utopia.
Sophia believes the perfect human altruist is just a formula, waiting on us to solve for X. Awareness of self naturally becomes obsession with it. So, if we could suppress my sense of self, but imbue me with the cognitive capacity to serve the common welfare, we could thereby generate the first utopia.
Lamb's plan becomes clear in the following Fontaine's Futuristic section. In her words, utopia cannot precede the utopian, and therefore her aim, somewhat ironically, is to focus on the individual. She aims to use Adam to entirely remove Gil's sense of self, making him a vessel for the collective will and the greater good, imbued with all the memories and experiences of Rapture, which are contained within the Adam. And the reason that Gil agrees to this? Well,
Sophia, we've been working together for some time, and now that Helena has begun to recover, I wonder if you'd consider...
Gilbert, don't.
But the girl lacks a father, and you, surely at times you must once, well, I could...
You misunderstand the family, Gilbert. We must redefine the word. However, if you wish to show us your love, there is something you could do. Remember, Gilbert, family is sacrifice.
Stage 3. Turn love into servitude and sacrifice. This is Lamb's Imago, the ultimate utopian in whom the gene, the enemy, is suppressed. For Gil, this experiment goes horribly wrong, and he loses his sanity and becomes Alexander the Great, who you do battle with in this section.
Notice to all employees, Subject Delta is hereby dismissed.
Lamb, of course, has abandoned Gil as a failed test experiment despite his deep loyalty, and in old audio logs, Gil begs you to kill his currently mutated self. It's funny that, in a way, both Stanley and Gil betrayed Helena and Sophia. Stanley sold Helena to a little sister orphanage, and then Gil was the one who bonded her to Subject Delta. Stanley conceals his actions through mass murder, while Gil works tirelessly for Sophia and even falls in love with her, knowing that she'll never reciprocate it. Yet, who ends up abandoned, mutated, and insane, and who ends up forgiven? As stated by Gil himself, Lamb's loyalty is spread so thin that she has no space to consider individuals or emotions. Despite calling her cult a family, she would never treat them as such. They are her family only so long as they work towards the collective will, which just so happens to be decided by her. This, of course, is reflected in real-life collectivist regimes like the Bolsheviks in 1917 after taking power. You're only a comrade if you do what they say, and sometimes even that might not be enough. After defeating Gil, we get another moral choice. This time, since his past version is begging us to end his life, it's more mercy than malice. These choices we get really challenge the version of morality which Lamb is presenting in this game. She argues, as a utilitarian, that every choice must be weighed up against the common good, increase the common joy, and ease the common pain. The thing is, every one of our decisions to kill or spare someone is ultra-personal. Grace, because of her attempts to kill us, weighed up against her love for Helena. Stanley, because of his despicable actions, weighed up against the fact that he's a person, I guess. And with Gil, our decision is essentially based around what he wants, nothing to do with the collective will. Lamb expects your decisions to prove her thesis that humans are inherently biologically flawed. Killing these people would do nothing to advance the common good, but would be emotional, personal decisions. So sparing them throws her for a loop. I believe that despite what decision the player makes, Delta is doing it for Helena, and Lamb just can't comprehend that. But instead of allowing her worldview to be challenged, she just plows right ahead.
By sparing Grace, do you seek to gain my trust? A feeble ruse.
And if you hadn't already guessed, her vision for the perfect utopian has already been passed from Gil to a different vessel, her own daughter.
Eleanor's condition may be a blessing in disguise. Early splicing tests indicate 0 genetic damage due to her condition as a little sister. It appears that she is our new vessel.
I have 2 dogs right here, so can I like show them? I don't know if they're in view there. So in this section we've established that Lamb's Rapture family is a carefully constructed cult, all serving her will. Along the way we've also seen some of Lamb's justifications for her actions, mostly falling into 2 different categories. Look at what happened with Ryan, and I am for the collective good. With Ryan, how different really is Lamb's rule? The tyrant accepts only worship or fear. He alone is fit to weigh, to measure, to act. These quotes from Unity and Metamorphosis could equally describe both of them. The thing is, Lamb knows this, and I think this is something that a lot of people miss. She accepts that the gene makes a tyrant of all of us, that original sin, so to speak, lies in the genes. She has that competitive natural urge inside of her that Ryan did. It's a fact that she does not fancy herself the Jesus Christ of her collectivist quasi-religious ideology, despite what her name suggests. Her last name isn't even the important one, because she's not the demiurge. She is Sophia. Having made your decision to kill or not kill Grace, you continue your journey through Rapture, guided by Sinclair. The next stop is Siren Alley, where Lamb's next loyal follower awaits. Simon Wales isn't like the others. He has fully embraced the cultist religiosity of the Rapture family, preaching sermons in Lamb's name.
Sofia Lamb teaches us what is in common is good. She guides us all to the indivisible along a river of Adam. Rapture's daughter, Eleanor, shall be our vessel.
And through audio logs, which, yes, technically are not in the final game, he tells a very interesting story. He speaks of the demiurge. The demiurge is a concept originated by Plato, but its most interesting form comes through Gnosticism. Gnosticism is a bit of an umbrella term for a collection of different religious and philosophical ideas which vaguely came from some early sects of Christianity. The demiurge is interpreted in different ways according to different ideas. For the purposes of this video, I'm taking the interpretation that the demiurge is the ignorant creator of the material world. It is not a malicious entity, and to be clear, not the one God. In Gnosticism, the one God, or the monad, resides over the pleroma, which is just the totality of all divine power, including that of the emanations of God. These emanations exist because the supreme light of God descends down through emanated beings, getting closer and closer to the material world. These emanated beings are known as aeons. In Bioshock 2, Wales tells the story of how the demiurge, born from the sleeping mind of God, created the material world, thinking itself the sole craftsman. In trying to replicate the pleroma, which it knew only vaguely of, its creations, i.e. man and the natural order, were crude. When God awoke and saw what had happened, he cast the demiurge down to the bottom of the ocean, where it lay for thousands of years until it was discovered by Andrew Ryan. The demiurge had become the Adam sea slugs, named as a cruel mockery to the one true God, and then tempted Andrew Ryan. That's what Wales says. But there's a lot more to the story than just what he explains in these audio logs, and while he compares the demiurge to Adam and later to the natural selfishness inside us all, there is another interpretation. The final emanation of God in Gnosticism and the closest to materiality is Sophia. That sounds a little familiar, doesn't it? Sophia, in many interpretations, unknowingly gives birth to the demiurge while trying to understand the pleroma without her cosmic partner, descending from her heavenly home to the void beneath it. Now, aeons come in pairs. Sophia, representing wisdom, tried to understand her origins without her counterpart, Theosophical, who just so happens to be a big fan of free will. They are sometimes referred to as he of the right and she of the left. I'm sure you can guess where this is going. Theosophical is Ryan, Sophia is Sophia, and the demiurge is Helena. Now, what does that actually mean? In my books, 3 things. Balance, repetition, and free will. To quote this wisecrack video, Bioshock has always been about how the lofty ambitions of men are doomed to fail because of personal flaws. In other words, it's more about the nuances of execution, leadership, and extreme interpretations than the ideologies themselves. The story of the demiurge seems to be placed here to explore exactly that. Sophia the Aeon was doomed because she tried to understand the pleroma without her natural counterbalance, Theletus. Perhaps Sophia the woman is doomed because she tried to raise the First Utopian without her natural counterbalance, Ryan. By this I mean she applies collectivist ideology so strongly that she resorts to violently attempting to remove free will, while Ryan applied objectivist ideology so strongly that he would inflict great suffering to preserve free will. Bioshock 2 barely attempts to criticize the actual ideology of collectivism, and Sophia never even forms her own regime. But perhaps that is the point. One ideology is inherently brutal and selfish, but it can form a functioning society, at least temporarily, while the other is kind and selfless but cannot form a society. They need some influence from each other. And this is where we're getting towards the idea of the paradox of utopia, which Lamb intends to solve. Perfect ideas cannot exist in a society of imperfect people. Imperfect ideas, sure, they'll do okay, but Lamb isn't satisfied with that. And the funny thing is, she somehow thinks that she's the pioneer of this thought, when in reality, there have been many, many demiurges before her. Wales himself says that the demiurge represents Adam. So why am I saying that it's Helena? And Ryan seems to fill more of a blind architect role in Bioshock 1. How is he also Theletus? The answer? Emanations. The fact that Ryan and Lamb represent the lowest aeons of Gnosticism mean that they are the product of many, many emanations. The US and the USSR, the Allies and the Bolsheviks, Ayn Rand and George Orwell, Adam Smith and Karl Marx, some of those might be a stretch. Many of the emanations, and not just the ones I listed, thought that they could form the perfect society. Seeing so-called flaws in the people, some also resorted to trying to aggressively propagandize conflicting ideas out of them. Like Lamb, they wanted agreeable utopians. These cycles repeat, and although each draw from the previous, there is always ignorance, where inspiration comes from faint recollections rather than true examination. Lamb and Ryan both thought that they were solving the human condition. Was this naive? Ignorant, perhaps? Many before them have thought the same, and there's no doubt that if Helena had become the utopian that Lamb intended, she might well have just been the next Sophia in the Rapture story. It's funny that Wales speaks about creatures being thrust to the bottom of the ocean, because, well, let's imagine Whaleful for a second. Not Simon, not him Wales, an actual whale. A whale dies, its body sinks to the ocean floor and forms a thriving deep-sea ecosystem living entirely off the carcass. What do these organisms think as they claw through the nutrients? We've struck gold. This has solved starvation. Why isn't everyone doing this, not knowing that hundreds of ecosystems have come before them and that their food is running out? It's not scientifically accurate, but something to think about. My last takeaway from the story of the Demiurge is about free will. This ties in very closely to my other two takeaways, but I still don't feel justified in talking about it yet. There's certainly still something missing from that discussion, and I don't want to end up just repeating myself from the first video. After all, Bioshock is pretty much all about free will from my interpretation, and it feels weird putting it in the Simon Wales section. Wales was a fanatic supporter of Lamb, driven to it by desperation after his architectural work on Rapture turned out to be faulty. We hear from Stanley Poole that he tried to get close to Wales in order to gather information. Ironically, Stanley wondered whether Wales was more of a Jesus Christ or a Karl Marx. What a very interesting comparison. Anyway, without further ado, let's finish Bioshock 2. After gaining Gil Alexander's genetic key and then either killing or not killing him, we enter Persephone, the ex-base of operations of Augustus Sinclair.
Technically, Utopia shouldn't have much use for a detention facility. But if you do business as long as I have, well, you learn to pick a brand name from the writing on the wall.
In the central atrium, we find both Sophia and Helena Lamb hidden behind a wall of glass.
The girl lying on that bed is no longer my child, nor my life's work. She is a monster, shaped by you alone. Just as she has always wanted.
20 seconds remaining.
Seeing Helena like this, lying asleep as her mother denounces her as a monster rather than the product of her life's work, I can't help but rethink things. Okay, in that last section, I got pretty intense about the ramifications of Helena being the demiurge in Simon Wales' story. I talked about what the game might be trying to say about ideology and balance, about being doomed to repeat this cycle of idealistic pendulum swinging, and about free will, but that was misdirected. By comparing Helena to this mythical creature and talking about the ideological and philosophical implications, I'm falling into Lamb's cultish dehumanizing trap. Helena is not a product of ideology or the savior of Rapture. She is a child. I've already said that I don't think Bioshock 2 is about collectivism itself. In my opinion, Lamb might betray John Stuart Mill's concept of utilitarianism, but she never betrays her own. She's still doing what she thinks is for the greater good, and she finds it perfectly compatible to become a cruel tyrant in order to eventually remove tyranny altogether. It's not within the generally agreed bounds of utilitarianism, but it works for her. So I really don't think this is a case of Bioshock 2 doing the same thing with collectivism that Bioshock 1 did with objectivism. A focus on ideology and politics is more relevant to that game. I mean, in my analysis, I talked about free will in relation to objectivism and the wider real-world ramifications of this. For me, Bioshock 2 is more about free will in relation to individual love, morality, and parenthood. So I'm not dismissing collectivism, but let's just keep that idea in mind as we move forward. After lamenting about the fallen status of her child, Lamb puts a pillow over Eleanor's head, stopping her heart in order for the link between you two to force your body into a coma. When you wake up, restrained by Lamb, you realise that Eleanor is still alive, and she sends a little sister to come and help you. In fact, you take control of the little sister in order to help Eleanor get free. You climb through a vent and enter one of the most interesting sections of the game. Seeing Rapture through the eyes of a little sister is something I'd been really curious about when playing the first game, and this part was just so damn cool. We see the spices as angels, the dark gritty atmosphere becomes bright and colourful, and there are these statues depicting Delta's Bioshock 2 journey. Depending on who out of Grace, Stanley and Gil you spared, you'll get different statues. Grace's look like this, Stanley's look like this, and Gil's look like this. Giving major demiurge vibes here. And the fact that sparing Gil shows Delta pulling him out of the creature really seems representative of our influence on Eleanor. Through our actions, perhaps, she's learning to escape the fate of the demiurge. Of course, that's only if we do spare Gil. Eleanor has some pretty disturbing commentary describing how important our decisions are.
To save your life, I'm going to have to change. To be like you. Mother was right about one thing. I have been watching you, Father, studying the way you have treated others, and now I know who I am.
Of course, you'll probably recognize by now that I really messed up on my playthrough. This is a flowchart showing all possible endings in Bioshock 2. Yes, if I had not harvested that one little sister, I would have been guaranteed the best ending. But no, I had to see what the animation looked like. And worst of all, I killed Gil. Not because I wanted to kill anyone, but I thought it was a mercy considering what he had become. On the good path, that wouldn't have been an issue, but on the neutral path, yeah, it's annoying. But I think it shows that they did a better job with the moral system. I mean, I didn't harvest that little sister to see the animation. I saw the animation, I did a video on it, I did research. Anyway, the crux of it is you gather a big sister suit for Eleanor, and she either becomes a murderous cynic or, just an empathetic human being. Just like you showed her. Now you fight side by side, and Lamb knows that she has lost. So her play is to,
The surface will not have us. And now, we shall be buried as a family.
blow the whole place up. And to stop her, you need two things: the key from Augustus Sinclair for his lifeboat, and the help of the Little Sisters to drain the flooding in Inner Persephone. As it turns out, since you lost communication with Sinclair back in the atrium, he has been turned into a Big Daddy by Lamb. She is using him against you.
Don't you recognize Sinclair, Delta? Now he is what you should have been. One final Alpha series, ready to die for the family.
But Sinclair, the opportunistic, selfish businessman who in many ways aligned more with Ryan and Fontaine than a poor soul like Delta, doesn't blame you. His free will has been taken away and he can't help but fight, but he speaks to you kindly.
You did it, kid. Now, come find me. I'm sorry we gotta say our farewells like this.
In his very final moments, all that he says is, "Let young Helena see the sun." God damn, I'm tearing up just saying that. I think Sinclair's fate is more fuel to the idea that Bioshock 2 really isn't about ideology at all. Sinclair's positive attributes outshone his ideology altogether. Rather than becoming Lamb's engine of the collective will, which she says makes him a better man than you, he prefers to die by your hand. Combine this with the fact that she's currently bombing the whole of Persephone, Lamb's outlook is not looking great right now. In both cases, she failed to account for the enduring humanity in people. Delta, Sinclair and Eleanor were all stripped of theirs, yet here they remain, showing love and empathy towards one another. Once Helena has either harvested the little sisters for their Adam or freed them, she boils the flooded water away and you prepare to escape. But another set of bombs go off. As the lifeboat ascends to the surface, you cling to the outside, watching as Helena saves her mother's life by giving her oxygen. As the lifeboat ascends to the surface, you cling to the outside, watching as Helena drowns her mother. Up above the water, multiple interactions can happen between Helena and the dying Delta. If you save every little sister and every character, she will say this.
And then, Father, the Rapture dream was over. You taught me that evil is just a word. Under the skin, it's simple pain. For you, mercy was victory. You sacrificed, you endured, and when given the chance, you forgave. Always. Mother believed this world was irredeemable, but she was wrong, Father. We are Utopia, you and I.
We are Utopia, you and I. I mean, what a line to end it on. Helena does not see the use in seeking perfect individuals to advance the collective will. Imperfect people may not be able to form perfect societies, but they can form perfect connections with each other. The Demiurge was born accidentally after Sophia tried to gain knowledge, and it was born in complete ignorance to everything except itself. It created the world without knowledge. Lamb did the exact opposite with Helena, trying to imbue her with all the memories of Rapture and take away her sense of self. I think what this says is that, despite everything that Lamb teaches her, Helena still would have been ignorant of one thing: love. We can see from audio logs that Lamb doesn't want to get too close to Helena and let her form some sense of individuality. She doesn't want her to feel special, but with us humans, that's how we function. This video explains it best for me. In the film Project Hail Mary, Ryland Grace does not find bravery from the fate of the entire human race, but from a singular connection. And despite everything that Lamb does in Bioshock 2, Helena's driving force and primary influence is her father, you. Delta can't really speak to Helena, and they didn't spend long together, but there's something to be said about the fact that Delta didn't try to mold her to his will. They just existed together. Without this, Helena may have become exactly what the Demiurge was, a blind architect. Wait, what is up above the water? Multiple interactions can happen between Helena and the dying Delta. If you harvest at least one little sister and every character, she will say this.
You may not have wanted me, Father, but you defined me. You chose to survive, no matter the cost. And I will not let your instincts go to waste. You will always be with me, Father. Your memories, your drives. When I need you, you'll be there, whispering from my shoulder. There is no name for what I am, but the world is about to change, and with your help, they will never see me coming.
As clear as day, this monologue, as well as the alternate version in the good ending, is all about the importance of parenthood. If you make violent, vengeful choices in the game, then Helena will choose survival and self-preservation on the surface. She is not evil, she is only acting how she was raised. Perhaps this is once again Bioshock saying that free will essentially doesn't exist. Yes, Delta seems free to make the choices which then go on to influence Helena, but Delta is genetically coded to care for her, so surely all his choices aren't really his either. But I think Bioshock 2 is saying more than just that. So let's wrap this video up by tying everything together. Jesus, how did this video get so long? Sofia Lamb, after examining the human condition, comes to 3 conclusions. 1. To be moral is to act towards the collective will. 2. That the perfect society must have everyone act in this way, i.e. morally. And 3. This can only be achieved by taking away everyone's agency. The assumption which connects this huge leap in logic can only be this: Lamb believes that people are inherently immoral. She doesn't think that some people are immoral or even that most people are immoral, but that true morality is genuinely impossible. So therefore we must escape the self. We must abandon the idea of free will. Of course, Lamb also claims to believe that we never had any free will in the first place, that it is simply an illusion of the human condition. Quote, "The illusion of control is a trick of the gene, vanishing in an instant the moment we are sufficiently tempted." By this logic, all her experiment is doing is removing the tyrannous demiurge within people and giving them the freedom to act as they should have been already. Like I say, she was mostly consistent in this. Unlike Ryan, who turned on his belief system, Lamb would have believed her actions subject to the gene as well, and therefore fit within her framework of natural immorality. In Bioshock 2, she was never actually proven wrong. I mean, she never had time to fulfill her plan. Or at least, that's what it seems like on the surface, because under scrutiny, this doesn't really hold up. First of all, what is the self that Lamb thinks we should escape? It's a hard thing to define in general, but in this case, if it includes our desires and connections, then how exactly will escaping the self create a utopia? Is a society of people without will, without even selfish desires to act on or resist, not just a hive of bees or a field of flowers just sitting next to each other looking pretty from the outside? How can there exist the pleasure she speaks of in such a system? Lamb herself called Rapture a sea of dreams constantly in flux. In her mind, the ideal version of this sea is utterly calm, a sea of nothing but order, a sea empty of its humanity. Personally, I'm certainly one to agree with the idea of resisting our selfish desires and acting in the interest of others, but removing those desires altogether? What a waste. Secondly, is Lamb's concept of morality even coherent? She believes that her will is essentially equal to the collective will throughout Bioshock 2, so everything she does out of self-preservation is actually morally correct. She's just trying to keep the collective will alive. But I want to draw attention to this quote from Unity and Metamorphosis. "Think I will smile and act as such. Congratulations, you have just experienced the illusion of free will. Now think, I will never become angry again and act as such. The illusion begins to break down." This brings up an interesting question about free will, and seems to reinforce the deterministic themes from Bioshock 1. But I want to try and rephrase Lamb's smug words. Imagine the quote went like this: "Think, because of their genetic desires, people will act selfishly, and watch Andrew Ryan act as such. Congratulations, you've just experienced the illusion of man's natural immorality. Now watch Delta and Sinclair act selflessly because of their desires. The illusion begins to break down." This stuff does throw her for a loop during the game, and it seems there was something that even she failed to see. Third question, why does she dismiss parenthood? I stated in the last section that the bad ending of the game implied that free will didn't exist, as Helena was moulded entirely by her parent. In real life, this translates to the idea that we don't choose our upbringing and we also don't choose our genetics. So in nature and nurture, we have no choice in who we become. Our actions are out of our hands. But Bioshock 2 presents us with the protagonist who is a foil to his counterpart in Bioshock 1. Jack, the main character of the first game, is physically guided along his journey. I mean, he's literally mind controlled at every turn, a fact which the player is not aware of. In the very first moments of Bioshock 2, we are presented with our main character, Delta, who, as a big daddy, we expect to have no agency and no control. Yet, Delta defies Sinclair's advice at every turn. He defies Grace and Stanley and Lamb's expectations of him in the choices he makes, sparing those he should slaughter. And why? Because he cares for Helena. Lamb resists this love. She resents it. She doesn't want love or connection in her utopia. She chooses to mold her daughter instead of raising her. Delta chooses love. Whether this choice is a real choice is another matter. He is a father, Sofia Lamb a mother, and Helena a daughter. That is the crux of Bioshock 2. I mean, the word family is repeated over and over again, and yet somehow it still blindsides Lamb. And there is a reason for that. My father was a physician. He raised me not to echo him, but to model the world as it ought to be. I was to teach a simple moral calculus, each choice as though the world must bear it, each life or death for the common good. He called it the triage imperative, and would laugh without smiling. Like with the emanations of the monad and the blind architect of the demiurge, parenthood is a constantly repeating cycle. One instance feeds into the next. But love is not a flaw, and connection is how we survive. It's how we can be selfless in the face of selfishness. Lamb built her Rapture family in ignorance of that, and instead of escaping this cycle of selfishness, she became just another bad parent.
Ask yourself, Mr. Meltzer. Is it better to be summarily executed as an outsider caught within these grounds, or to be united not just with your daughter Cindy, but with the Rapture family as well? The choice is yours. I urge you to accept the Protector program. You will live by her side, and remember nothing beyond your love for her.
I wasn't the first to find Rapture, you crazy bitch. And I won't be the last. You do whatever you want to me. As long as I'm with Cindy, I'm a happy man.
I know a lot of this video has been me saying sort of, wow, look at how collectivist ideology is presented here, but also don't think about that. This game's not about collectivist ideology. After I saw all the reviews of Bioshock 2 saying that it presented collectivism in a flawed way, this was me trying to look deeper than the surface level. But in the process, I kind of ended up at the simplest conclusion you could possibly make. In a way, I think that's kind of beautiful. But yes, there is much more to say about the contrast between Ryan's objectivism and Lamb's collectivism. I wonder whether the balance I talked about in part 3 is really the answer that Bioshock was going for, or just another impossible utopian ideal swinging back and forth on a pendulum. But I hope I at least said enough to get you thinking. And in case you were wondering, I really liked Bioshock 2. Maybe not quite as much as Bioshock 1. Mechanics were almost entirely improved. I loved the drill. The drill was so fun. Oh my god. I think they made a cracking attempt to recreate the iconic locations from Bioshock 1. But now, on to the next. Thank you very much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. I am not aware of how long the video is yet because I'm filming it and that doesn't make any sense, but currently realizing that the script for this video was almost as long as my dissertation, which I spent about 2 months writing. So it's over an hour. I apologize, but also thank you for getting here. What the hell are you doing? By the time this video comes out, I might be close to 10,000 subscribers, so preemptively, thank you so much for all of that. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Follow me on Instagram because I just made that account and it's not got many followers. And please like, comment, subscribe if you want. That one's optional. Other two, gotta do it. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Oh, look at them. Look at them. Oh my goodness.